Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. Please join me and my guests on this next interview. The Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, and Slovak Prime Minister, Robert Fico, have threatened to block forthcoming European Union declaration supporting Ukraine unless the bloc alters its strategy towards the ongoing conflict with Russia. Both leaders advocate for immediate ceasefire negotiations and direct talks with Moscow, diverging from the EU's prevailing approach of supporting Ukraine against Russian aggression. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss Hungary and Slovakia's stance on EU defense, their position on Ukraine, and the internal narratives shaping these policies is Péter Balázs, former Hungarian Foreign Minister and EU Commissioner. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So let's start with the most recent announcement, actually. We are looking at U.S. pausing military aid to Ukraine as confirmed by White House official. Can you first give us your comment on this particular situation?
Well, we have seen a very tense public discussion between President Zelensky of Ukraine in the White House with President Trump. I think it was a diplomatic mistake to start such a discussion before the public, but this was the wish and the scenario of the U.S. president. And now we have a very difficult situation, but not without a solution. There is a two-track approach on behalf of Europe. One is what you have just mentioned, coming special meeting of the European Council in 2 days. And the other one is a kind of a coalition of the willing NATO members, important countries which are not in the EU but are in NATO, like Turkey, like Canada, like Norway or Iceland. And they are preparing some common action. There is already a proposal, a suggestion about a ceasefire.
Right, and when it comes to the U.S.'s stance, it's quite clear, but the EU right now, it's more important than ever to stay united. However, it does seem like Hungary is not that much on board with said unity. How do recent threats by Hungarian and Slovakian minister to block the EU's pro-Ukraine declaration impact the bloc's unity when it comes to collective foreign policy?
I like to make a very clear difference between Hungary and the Hungarian government. And I think the same goes for Slovakia and the actual Slovak government. So the two politicians who oppose some joint action are Viktor Orbán of Hungary and Robert Fico of Slovakia. At the same time, the majority of public opinion in both countries is in favor of European integration. There is a sympathy towards the self-defense of Ukraine and so on. So yes, there is a real threat on behalf of two governments for the time being to put obstacles on that way, and they are threatening with veto depending on the discussions. Orbán was more explicit than Fico, because Orbán sent a letter to Antonio Costa, the permanent president of the European Council, and suggested not to accept a written conclusion of the meeting because there could be some difficulties. So this one we know. We don't know how it would be followed up because usually at European Council, the decision is taken on the spot, and the last-minute talks have a great importance.
You brought up something, a very interesting statement that you just made, that Hungarian doesn't necessarily equate the Hungarian government. A lot of people have differing views with Orbán's stance. Are there any kind of internal domestic factors in which in Hungary that's influencing the government's stance when it comes to the Ukraine conflict or the relation with the European Union?
I think that when Prime Minister Orbán is taking positions on the international scene, he has to keep one eye on the home front as well, and there are at least two major difficulties. One is the very bad economic situation in Hungary. This is one point, and the other one that for the first time in his very long reign, he has been in office for more than 15 years now, but this time he has a real competitor, and there is an opposition party which is more popular than the government.
Right. You also mentioned the economic situation being a factor. Do you think if, any other European countries might fall into the same pitfall where the economic situation dictates where it has to go, and perhaps we see this rift of disunity happen in the Union?
This economic situation is close to European problems, because the European money, European funds, which are partly suspended, are badly missing for the Hungarian budget. So this is one reason why Orbán tries to increase the tension with the European Union. Hungary is more exposed to some problems because it's maintaining energy purchase from Russia, which is a very different position if you compare it with the Czech Republic, with Germany or others, which made very important steps in order to be not to be dependent from Russian sources.
You also brought up Hungarian Prime Minister finally having an actual challenger in Péter Balázs. Can you help us understand what's the current situation? How likely is Balázs actually, what are his chances actually, and what's the level of support for the opposition?
Well, since a bit more than 1 year, a new political movement and a new political party has emerged. We can see it on the screen now, with Péter Balázs in the middle, and the new party, which is called Tisza, according to the second biggest river of Hungary, is very popular. And the popular support is increasing, and people who are not satisfied with the governance performance of Viktor Orbán and his company are supporting this new person, who is really promising, young, dynamic, and has a good program.
And what is his prospect, and when's the next election going to take place? Can we realistically expect a different direction where the country is going?
Well, there is still a rather long time, at least in politics, because it's more than 1 year from now. The next parliamentary elections are due in spring 26. So there is 1 year for campaigning, and we have the impression that Mr. Orbán is already switched to campaign mode, and he is using everything in order to increase his popularity and to defeat his competitor. But his competitor is active as well.
So, seeing that the election still ways away, but the current situation is kind of urgent, what are some prospects for actually achieving any sorts of cohesiveness when it comes to EU foreign policies?
Well, I think Orbán has clearly taken the side of Russia in all those discussions which were about the actual situation in Ukraine, and his model is followed by Robert Fico of Slovakia. Orbán was more than happy when Donald Trump was elected in the United States, because they are very close allies. At the same time, as we see on the picture, Orbán is paying regular visits to Vladimir Putin and supporting him. So this is a problem within the European Union, because in some questions we have to take unanimous decisions. And if there is a veto, it's an obstacle. But in the last time, the EU has found some good solutions. I can remember one case when it was about the future EU membership of Ukraine. The member states, the prime ministers, asked Mr. Orbán to go out from the room for a coffee, and they took the decision without his presence. So there are some technical sideways which can be useful for the EU in order to achieve its objectives.
You mentioned Orbán's close relationship with the U.S. President Donald Trump. Have they met so far? Do you think Trump's influence might be able to give him a leg up when it comes to the internal situation?
I don't think so. This is a personal relationship. Orbán supported Trump all along the campaign. He visited him in Mar-a-Lago, in his house, and so on. And Orbán is receiving extreme right American movements and people in Hungary. The famous CPAC conference was holding meetings in Hungary as well. So he has a personal relationship, but I think that as far as the economy is concerned, this is not the US president who is deciding on everything. Orbán would need some cheap money in order to substitute the EU funds, but money is acquired through banking channels and investing companies, and not by political relations.
All right. Thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Welcome.
Cheers. And thank you for watching this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.